Going to be talking about why Fresno Unified is broken, how it's hurting kids, but more importantly, how to fix it. So tonight, our guest is Tammy McMahon-Gorans, who is running, as they say, for the Fresno Unified School Board seat to represent the Sunnyside High School District in southeast Fresno. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Trustee Slatic. It is so good to be here, and I'm very excited to have a conversation with you.
Okay, there's so many things we need to talk about. Let's get going.
Let's go.
So the first one that everyone wants to know, when you decide that you want to be an elected person, in this case for the school board, the most important elected office in the world as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
Okay. What made you want to do this, Tammy?
Well, you can't choose the people that pick the problem to fix the problem, and there's a lot of problems in Fresno Unified. And so the one person that has fought for our kids has been silenced. So I am suiting up and showing up after 35 years of being an educator to help Fresno Unified be the positive change that it so, and let me emphasize this, desperately needs.
So you have been a classroom teacher teaching our little ones for a long time, and we really appreciate your service in the classroom. How long have you been in the classroom teaching the little ones?
35 years with the early elementary emphasis, so K through 3, and special education for 5 years. I just left a luncheon with Sheriff Margaret Mims, and so we were having this discussion about the people who have come to her prison who are unable to read. And I love to just critically think about these things. And I have this wonderful idea that if Fresno Unified students can graduate and be fluent and academically reading at high levels, their chances of making it out in the real world are going to be so much higher. There's a connection between those who are going to prison and those who cannot read. So
right, and
just learned that today.
Well, you're right, of course. We'll be circling back to that in a moment.
Okay.
So before you decided to really get involved and save the kids in a different way than you have for the last 35 years, did you understand how big Fresno Unified is? 109 schools, $2.2 billion budget, 11,000 employees. Did you understand the scope of how big this place is?
Absolutely not. So 10,000 in the Sunnyside district and 14 schools. I would be representative if I'm honored to represent them, and I just am so excited about that. And no, I did not know. What is the budget? The budget is
currently $2.2 billion, but that's just a number unless you have something to compare it to. That's versus $1.7 billion for the city of Fresno.
Right.
So with 11,000 employees, the largest employer in the state of California, north of Los Angeles.
Right.
That's a crazy big thing, and until people understand how big it is, they don't understand how big it is.
Right.
So the other question is, before you really started trying to get your mind around Fresno Unified, you knew it was broken, as I did before I got on the school board. But then, at that point, did you realize that it was ranked nationally in the bottom 5% of large school districts in America?
Well, I know that because I've been involved in Fresno Unified for the last year upon retirement. I was the chapter lead for Central California No Left Turn in Education, which I am separate from now because I'm running as a trustee, so I'm not involved in that. But I was attending board meetings, and they would make us wait several hours before we could speak. So I got to listen to the board members actually speak, and I have been horrified by the content of their character. I'll just say that right now. So I am in disbelief as to how they treat people, and I believe they are social justice activists. I do not believe there's not unity. It's not our children. It's not our kids. Every time they open their mouths, it is my group. And then there's my group. And then there's my group. And I'm just shouting from the sidelines, let's all join together and say our kids need help. They are all our kids. And let's not divide us by our differences, but unite us by the fact that we are there for our kids. When I used to test students for, say, main idea, the 3 other teachers were in a PLC, and we would test the students and assess them, and say there were 10 that didn't get it. We never said, oh, well, let's pull this race out here and let's pull that. No, they were all our kids. And the only time we offered extra support to the 10 kids that did not get the concept was if they had special education needs or if they had English as a second language. But all 10 children were important. So it's not that way with Fresno Unified. All right. So it's not that way. So there is segregation and in programs, and it's not just a program to help all of our children. Just it's not there.
So you are looking to become the elected school board representative representing the Sunnyside region in Southeast Fresno against a lady who's been there for decades, a school board member named Valerie Davis.
Yes.
And I've seen something that she put out recently that she's so proud. Her biggest accomplishment was keeping the kids or getting the kids off of campus for COVID and keeping them off for 400 or 500 days. Did she say something like that?
I was horrified. The biggest accomplishment of Valerie Davis is during COVID. So I was horrified. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Because I taught during COVID. So in the fall of 2020, the American Pediatrics, okay, we're saying follow the science, that these are the scientists, pediatrics for children, said it was safe for schools to open. The next day, the big interest money union said, put out a video. I watched it in real time. I double dog dare you to open up. A couple days later, Gavin Newsom closed us down. A couple days later, Bob Nelson said, we're closed down for the year, Zoom only. I taught during Zoom in the fall of 2020. A little girl named Maria was outside her single trailer out in the wind, and no one was helping her, and she would come in and out of the camera, in and out of the camera. I wept for her. And our district said we will get that waiver. There was a waiver that you could apply for. And November 1st, we safely open. Emmanuel safely open. Kingsburg safely open, I believe, October 1st. So there were districts that had a different mindset. We talk about having a mindset in education. This mindset was kids first. So, and I'm not minimizing teaching during COVID. It was a rough year. All right. I mean, but it's like running a marathon and you're running into brick walls. But at the end of the year, our kids are more than a half a year ahead of Fresno Unified kids because we offered in-person education. Plus, we also offered distance. So if parents were scared and they were not ready, they could go distance. But for every one class distance teacher, there were 5 classes of second grade that were in person because we gave parents a choice, the freedom to choose to have their child physically in a seat. And that year was just a precious, precious year. Sometimes when we do hard things and we do perseverance, we're teaching kids that they can do hard things, and modeling will do hard things. So it was tough. But we did whatever it took for children. So that kind of mindset, I want to bring to Fresno Unified.
I like that so much, and I look forward to having you sitting on the board with me after November 8th.
I can't wait to be of service.
Right. So we are here with Tammy McMahon-Gorans, who is running for the Sunnyside School Board seat to represent Southeast Fresno on the Fresno Unified School Board. We have a lot of things to talk about here on Fix Our Fresno Schools. The next one is you've stumbled upon, I think, some parents that have some giant concerns about inappropriate books in our school libraries that are getting into the hands of second graders, third graders, fourth graders. Would you care to speak to that?
Yes. So I spoke to the Fresno board in June, and it was a beautiful speech. It really was. It's on YouTube. I'll share it anywhere. But I said that no teacher should be promoting political ideology. And Gender Nation a year ago, and Fresno B even praised it as good. Gender Nation, it's even up on their website. Bob Nelson calls it new values. That's our new values. So there's over 1,000 books. Why in the elementary schools? Why is the K through 6 schools being targeted with books that teach boys they can be girls, girls they can be boys? See, I get so confused. And drag queens shaking their booty. So this father has gone to the board meeting about something I discussed in June, saying we should not be political in our schools. I've taught with gay teachers. What a concept. Gay teachers. I've taught with students that later transition in their adult lives. And we love kids. We teach we've been doing anti-bullying for 35 years. We teach kids to treat each person with respect, no matter how they dress or what books they want to read or whatever. I had a boy that liked Pinkalicious one year, and some kids were like, he likes pink. I'm like, let him read what he wants. He's reading. We don't get involved in that kind of stuff. So this dad has spoke to the board, and he's been ignored. And then we were at an LCAP meeting. That's where they discuss all the finances that they're spending, all the millions and billions of dollars they're spending. And they invite the parents with lots of free food. And then they say, we want to hear you, but we've already spent the money here. So there was a Hispanic woman at the meeting, and there was a Native American woman at the meeting. And they said, this is off the topic, that dad spoke too. And he said, you're discriminating against me by promoting this. And Tammy, the gal that was running the LCAP meeting, same name, nice name. And Tammy said, well, we are inclusion. And I just want to say something about inclusion. If you're doing inclusion and you exclude everybody that doesn't believe that philosophy, that children are born in wrong bodies. I mean, there is a whole religious, and there's even gays against groomers who are against this. This should not be in our schools. We just teach people to treat each other with respect, and we don't get involved in promoting political ideology that's controversial. So we don't even say Merry Christmas. Do we put manger scenes at Christmas? Do we? Do we put right before Easter? We don't even say Happy Easter. Spring break. So we traditionally stay out of belief systems. Gender theory is a belief system that has no place in schools. So it's very sinister. It's wrong. I love all people. I love all people. I embrace all people. I have friends from all different communities, but we do not push ideology in our schools. So I'm trying to get politics out. Let's focus on reading, writing, math, the basics.
Well, I think Tammy is alluding to the fact how just in the last couple of weeks it's come out, because I brought it out from Fresno Unified's own data set, that only 17% of the 74,000 students at Fresno Unified read at grade level. So the topic we're going to discuss now is that if we have 74,000 students, only 17%, less than 1 in 5, read at grade level, yet we're spending all this time on Tammy's discussing the concept of what downtown at Fresno Unified is called social emotional learning and social justice and equity. So if the students are getting a full day, a full week, a full month, a full semester of those things, yet little Johnny and little Susie can't read at grade level, only 17% of our kids, 74,000 kids read at grade level because we're spending all our time on this other stuff. And I'm not going to say that other stuff doesn't have its place, but should it be at any point in time prioritized over getting the kids to read at grade level? As a classroom teacher, what do you think?
There's an old song that said we need to get back to the basics of life, and that's what we need to get back to. So I was watching a video from a Fresno Unified board meeting of a teacher speaking about, look at all this stuff you've put on our plate. We've got Second Step. By the way, Second Step has critical race theory in it. You've got social emotional stuff. You've got this, you've got that. We're choked at just teaching our kids the basics, reading, writing, math. Even teachers are frustrated. And then a whole nother subject is the fact of discipline. So I know as a teacher who's been in the classroom for 35 years and still is in the classroom, that the number one problem with the teacher is also having not being able to teach because of behavior difficulties as well. So, and that's just the way it is. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, that brings up a great question. So, in my 4 years on the school board, again, in this giant, third largest school district in the state, 20th in the nation, $2.2 billion budgets, 109 school sites, 11,000 employees, I get into the classroom. And I watch, and I have proven this thesis that Tammy is saying, that in every single classroom, there's a few kids, never more than 5, sometimes 3, sometimes 2, that are extremely disruptive. And they spend their time, how shall we say, eliminating the learning opportunities for the other 30 kids in the class. So you, Tammy, as a classroom teacher, when you've seen this, even with the little ones, the third graders, and you're hampered if you want to send that kid down to the office to give them a timeout to get realigned with expectations, and you see the administration down in the office not allowing that, to just know it's your problem, teacher Tammy. What do you want to say to that? How should those those administrators, those principals, those vice principals, should they be more supportive of the teachers trying to get the 30 kids in the class who want the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to learn?
Yeah, you send Johnny down with a problem and he comes back with a lollipop
In
or
5
an
minutes.
iPad.
In 5 minutes.
Right.
Right. Not in 30 minutes
Right.
after a timeout. This is a big problem at Fresno Unified, and it's something that Tammy, when she's on the board with me, we want the oversight that board members have over the running of the district to address this immediately.
Well, Valerie Davis did say we were at a meeting together.
You're referring to the current representative.
The current one at
Right.
Sunnyside. So she was also not only bragging about COVID, but bragging that the last 3 months of last year, not one student was suspended from Sunnyside High School. Well, I guarantee you with 10,000 kids, there is something going down in those schools that's being hidden because kids are violent. And if you have a child in school and your kid's head gets pounded in the wall, do you want a consequence? Because I know I'm all for restorative justice. If a child messes up a bathroom, then they need to go in there and clean it up with the custodian. That's great. That's restorative justice. We go to the person that we've offended. We make amends. All that is very, very good. But if Johnny's head or your child's head gets pounded in the wall, there needs to be a consequence. And so I also know that this is all political because I talked to a board member that works at Lemoore High School. And so Hanford doesn't suspend at all. And Lemoore does, like when someone needs to be suspended. She said, well, Tammy, there's a dashboard at Sacramento. So if like Fresno Unified doesn't suspend anybody, they're up at the top like, yay! Don't you wonder why Gavin Newsom comes to Fresno Unified? That's his baby for social justice. That's his baby. No one gets suspended. But if your kids are not safe because someone's in there holding your kid's class hostage, is that fair?
It's not fair, and it's wrong.
Is that equitable?
And it's wrong. So we were discussing a moment ago here with Tammy McMahon-Gorans, who's the candidate to represent Fresno Unified School District's board for Southeast Fresno and the Sunnyside region. So we were talking about how only 17% of the 74,000 students at Fresno Unified read at the grade level. So if they're in 10th grade, 9th grade, 8th grade, they read at that level. So again, less than 1 out of 5. And now let's get into the other one. How many of those 74,000 students do math at the grade level? And this data that came out, because I released it just a couple weeks ago, shows that the number is about 8%. So if we have 17% of the kids reading at grade level and only 8% of the kids doing math at grade level, if that does that spell apocalyptic futures for these kids in your mind, Teacher Tammy?
You bet it does. You bet it does. Heavy duty consequences. If a child, being in early childhood development, is not reading by the third grade, their chances are slim that they're going to go and lead successful lives. So we've got to treat this as the emergency that it is. But in attending all these board meetings the last year, I never heard board members, number one, you couldn't talk, but I couldn't hear board members talking about the critical emergency of academic success that it was. All I hear is, we're great, we're great, we're great. And I am all, don't get me wrong, I am a Pollyanna. I'm all for, like, I follow all the 14 Sunnyside schools. I follow them and I see what they're doing. And I'm just like, I am a cheerleader. I will root on every positive program. So I'm all for that. But I never saw them accept responsibility for keeping the schools closed. I don't see humility. I don't see a being of service spirit. I just see just attitude, and I don't see compassion towards the people that speak at the board meetings. I don't see that they really care. When we went to that LCAP meeting Tuesday night, Valerie Davis, I didn't know I could have introduced myself as running for trustee, so I sat there in silence. But she basically gave this wonderful speech and left, while parents complained about being discriminated against. And there was no representative. Like, a trustee should be of service, right? So shouldn't they be in that LCAP meeting? Especially it was at Sunnyside High School. So she should be visiting those people that are complaining and saying, how can I help you? How can I get this discrimination out? But she spoke and left. And I will not speak and left. I promise you. If I am voted in, I will be of service to the people.
And I know that to be true. So we're here with Tammy McMahon-Gorans, who is looking to represent the Sunnyside region in Southeast Fresno on the Fresno Unified School Board. Something I want to add to what Tammy just put so perfectly is, in my 4 years being at every single one of the 97 meetings, the only person who's attended all meetings in the last 4 years, is that there is no sense of urgency. Okay, on the rare occasions that something is admitted to be not right or we need work on it, it's always in a dismissive, well, there are things we could do better. Well, I look at that education. Every 4 years we lose a generation of kids. That group in high school is gone every 4 years. And there's this no sense of urgency. Simply, well, we'll get around to fixing it at some point. And it breaks my heart. And what Tammy is saying about Trustee Valerie Davis, who's been there for 20 years representing Sunnyside, well, it's declined from an average performing region to the bottom 5%. I'm thinking that the citizens of Southeast Fresno might be very willing to accept change. Are you seeing that when you're out knocking on doors?
Well, I knocked on one door and I was speaking to a woman. She was like, I'm so grateful that you visited me. These are neighbors, because we're in the same neighborhood. We're just one street across from each other. And one person said, please talk to the people across the street, because they have a sign up on their gate and they don't want to put the sign up, but they felt like they had to. So they were under pressure, but they don't like Valerie Davis. So I got a lot of people saying, you've got my vote, that we're in the same neighborhood. So there are people who know, and then there's a lot of people that just don't know. But in the name of equity used to mean kids get what they need, and teachers were all for that 5 years ago. And now equity means equal outcomes. So tell me a child, if you've raised 3 or 4 or 5 children in your household, who had equal outcomes. And teachers, tell me any year that you've taught that all of your students had equal outcomes. The only people with equity are like North Korea has equity. Venezuela had equity and they're coming here. Cuba has equity. So Valerie Davis was saying 86% of our kids graduated. Yay! But if 750 of those kids have a 1.1 to a 1.5 GPA, are they going to be still living with their parents for an extended period of time? Are they equipped with the tools to go out there and make it in the world? Are they? Is that a fraudulent certificate? You bet it is. And now, recently, she's saying, We want 100% graduation rate. So we're going to give everybody a trophy, whether they worked for it or not, all in the name of equity. And that sounds like No Child Left Behind back in the 90s, 80s. No Child Left Behind. So if everybody gets a trophy, but kids can't read, then they can't succeed. And moms and dads out there, they're going to be living in your basement. They won't be out there making it in the world.
Right. So something I want to add to what Tammy just said so eloquently is when you're looking at any of the statistics that Fresno Unified is producing about its own performance, you need to be very cynical, as I am, and I've become even more so, when they want to express things in the context of grade level. In other words, what percentage of our kids have C minuses? Well, when Tammy and I went to school, a C was a 2.0. Remember?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, if you see all these studies that Fresno Unified is saying that we have all these kids, the vast majority at C minus grades or above, but then you start going, well, what does C minus mean at Fresno Unified? It means 1.5.
Yeah, oh, come on.
So they obfuscate, and I love the word obfuscation, hiding things. So I continually walk around that giant building down on Tulare Street, downtown Fresno Unified, called the Ed Center, and I'm looking for the office of the assistant superintendent in charge of obfuscation, because it took me years on this board, my first 2 years, to figure out that, wait a minute, 1.5 is the same as a C minus, but no other place in the world or historically was it like that. Another example of the obfuscation at Fresno Unified is that you only need a 1.0 to get a diploma. And it took 2 years for me to pull back the data to find that was the case. And then, most importantly, after I found that out, I start going back historically through all the records to see who approved that. Who approved making it not a 2.0 GPA to graduate to a 1.0?
Who did?
There's no record going back 20 years. Somebody in it, not a board, it might have been a superintendent, but there wasn't a vote. The most important part, this is policy, and as you know, policy is a board decision. Mm-hmm. There's no record of it ever being decided with a vote that we're going to go from a 2.0 GPA graduation requirement to a 1.0 GPA graduation requirement. And if things happening in just by one person signing off on it rather than the elected representatives of the people that represent your school board, that represent this school, the education in Fresno, making that decision, you should be petrified on the loss of control, yet you continually hear, well, we want to have local control meetings and give you your voice. My 4 years of doing this, that's a farce. Okay, please get engaged. Please go to these meetings. Please realize that you are being sold a bill of goods, and that ask hard questions and believe nothing. And call a Tammy McMahon-Gorans or a Terry Slatic and say, hey, what does that really mean? So you've seen, Tammy, about grades. There are districts in California, notably Oakland, they don't even have D's or F's anymore.
Yeah.
What do you think about that as a classroom teacher?
Well, Oakland is desperately trying to get back to success because all of their policies have failed their kids. Now they're like, oh, we do need to get back to phonics. We do need to get back to. So I just think, you know what? Let's teach each other how to critically think through these things. Not what to think, but how to critically think through these things. Because a lot of people, I believe, are brainwashed to think I really think Valerie Davis she really truly, I don't know the people up on that board, their motives, but I just don't. I wish they would just critically think through, like, are your policies really helping children? If you say restorative justice and kids are not held accountable for anything, are you really helping them? Because I tell you, in the real world, you mess up, you get fired. You don't follow the rules, you're gone. You break the law, you're in trouble. So
perfectly put.
Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. I want you to come back tomorrow and watch our next show, and please send this show to your friends. I'm Fresno Unified School District Trustee Major Terry Slatic, and this is Fix Our Fresno Schools. We need your help. on Election Day to change this board. Thank you and good night.